Aesthetic. All right, peace, peace. I missed you all last week. I'm here now. And again, as I keep saying, as I can get back to the school, I will. Today's class, I have a lot of questions to answer, particularly from the God. A lot of questions. P.E.A.C.E. He gave me a lot of questions, a lot of great questions. I think that I wouldn't think to ask, but are perfect questions by a student that is coming to learn. Any commentaries, any thoughts, any questions that you have, let me know. Also have some thoughts about the whole Will Smith thing that are different. I always have a different understanding and than some of the very worthy understandings that I shared. You know what I'm saying? Right? Peace to the God substance. All right, bond supreme peace. Yeah. Last week was a very difficult week, but I did not miss class because of those difficulties. I literally missed class because it was a special week I had with my daughter, so I took that time to be with her. Although there were a lot of harrowing things during the week, those didn't come into the play as far as my decision. It was simply a little extra, try to spend as much time with my little one as I had her for the week. You know what I mean? And just decided to do that. Since I couldn't go to a law school and make an adventure out of it, we made the adventure where we were. Third piece. Yeah. So after a whole week, let me know the questions that you have, all of these kind of things. Where are we at with the building? Any questions that you might have? Where, again, the reason that that there's a particular style of questioning that I ask for is because I want you to mold the type of curriculum that you have. I want you to learn that this course is something that doesn't necessarily end. So what happens is that I am molding you to be your own teacher. And some people are better at explaining things to themselves and finding answers that explain situations as opposed to being a good teacher. Right? Give me a minute. Let me get some more light here.
Let's fly to Disney.
All right. It's a little bit more light.
That's what I'm saying. So then we're gonna go to LA.
All right. So as we go in, I have a lot of questions here to answer. I'm gonna see how many. I didn't even get the chance to read them. I just put them in my file here. But there is at least 30 questions. You know what I mean? Really good questions, actually. Okay. Really good questions. And again, a lot of it is really how do we direct ourselves to make the curriculum for ourselves? How do we direct ourselves to be students in our own personal research, not to get lost studying only what we like, what we're good at. How do we challenge ourselves? How do we question things as far as making research can be palatable for ourselves? When is it good to do research that necessarily doesn't seem to have to fit into one's daily life? You know what I mean? And this is why I think a lot of students need that development. You know what I mean? And this is why I have certain plus lessons, the justice curriculum, all of these type of things. All right. So I take a couple of moments here to get people to catch up with their questions, throw out their questions. And let it be known I should be here. We'll start around this time. I'll be here at least till 9 o'clock. Try to go a little early. I'm training extremely early. Waking up at 5 a.m. and just training within the half hour. Kind of like a intense training where I give myself no time to get set, no time to get comfortable. I ready things and I dive right into the heavy weightlifting, the strength training session, and then I'm out of the house. You know what I mean? So after about 4 days of doing that, any of the days after, I just go out and train and leave the strength training is done for the week. But a lot of different types of training I've been doing. Um, we have the first 3 months, so now it's really like to me the development of what you have done should start to have application. How are you going to do stuff for some of us in the better weather? How are we going to build? What are our major moves that might be in place? And that's the case with myself. So a lot of the stuff I'm doing here is very transitional. You know what I mean? I'm expecting to be back at the school. Um, so I should be able to adjust after about a certain amount of time. You know what I mean? And really get this in. You know.
Taking your ears off. No, but that hurts. I'm good. I'm doing on the side.
So that's using our phones. No, no. The holiday babysitter. You know, because like I'm hearing like talk.
All right. Since it's kind of quiet on the question front or on the builds front, I like to see what people's builds are. I haven't heard a good understanding knowledge in a while. You know what I mean? Right. But when look at understanding knowledge, I look at the process of things. I always, for some reason, always look at that. You know what I mean? The process of things. There are is a concept that I have built on often. Is a concept that all of us, all of humanity, we take in a certain perspective into the things that we do. I don't want to use opinion. Let's assume that no matter what it is, though, it could be based on knowledge as well. But we take a certain perspective of how we deal with things. That perspective, when it is based on true knowledge and is fortified, meaning when I mean by fortified, is that because it's based on knowledge and then based on experience, that knowledge, which is wisdom, it becomes understanding. So what happens is that it is an actual principle, molded principle. To me, best part, the best type of understanding, molded principle, something that you actually will do once you encounter knowledge, right? So that process of knowledge, understanding, encountering new knowledge is a reality of the way of life, the culture, right? Understanding knowledge-born culture, right? This idea of understanding them being a particular perspective of knowledge that has been used, that has been wisdom into its own revelation of purpose, is something that is brought into every situation. For example, in 5%ers, when we take in an understanding, we take an understanding through the idea of the merits of something toward the children, the best part. In other words, the future, those who we were building with, right? Other people take it, for example, other people take things as far as other perspectives. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I certainly am not going to call it based on knowledge. Their perspective may immediately say, I take things via the perspective of my craft. You know what I mean? So let's say, for example, this Will Smith example is good for at least part of it, so you get the idea. Let's say a comedian, his perspective is not really based on the well-being of the children immediately. It's always based on his craft. So when he looks at situations, he doesn't worry if it is offensive or if it is not worthy or if it may be jarring to the youth or to his own people, whatever it is, right? He looks at the perspective of, is this a quality joke for the as a comedian? Will it work though? Does it have a good will it hit well? If you're a 5%, in the majority of situations, we have a different way. Our way that becomes that culture that we live is based on understanding. This understanding that the youth are the best part, right? So whether we decide to share something, do something that seems, maybe it might be violent, maybe it might be seemingly offensive, whatever it is, right? And I'm out of the Will Smith thing here. I'm not using that, right? I was just using the idea of a comedian, but now I'm not using anything. But their perspective isn't based on the children, right? Or the perspective of, like, for example, our perspective, because it's based on the youth, our understanding when we encounter new knowledge and how we would live that out as a culture, we always take into account, though, are the ways and actions that I will take this knowledge in, will it produce a culture that actually shares something worthwhile? So what we merit as worthwhile is the ultimate perspective, right? And so that is the understanding that we're bringing in. You see what I'm saying? That is the understanding. You have to understand that everybody has a bias into a certain situation. It's a bias because you have understanding that you were bringing into the situation. And when it collides with all the new information that could be knowledge, right, that then becomes understanding knowledge, you will have a different perspective than everybody else. So when I look at understanding knowledge or being born a culture, it also means that everyone's culture is going to be alike, but uniquely distinct, regardless to whom they are. You know what I'm saying? Trying something interesting I saw that was very similar to the martial artist, but the more that we train in the martial arts, for example, especially kung fu, you can tell different things about people without them saying things. You know what I mean? In other words, their moves can tell whether they have great fear, whether they have apprehension, whether they have confidence. And these are the ideas of body language, for example, right? Body language is very important, though. But in other words, you're in tune to the merging of all the languages and the concept that these languages also may conflict in the way the person moves. Sometimes people's body languages can deliberately or you know can deliberately or by accident contradict each other. So when someone's body language could be confident, but their mentality is not. You know what I mean? That could be done deliberately or by accidentally. You know what I mean? Right? So taking all these things, understand that when whatever understanding that you bring, though, it could be understanding or it could not be understanding. But the true and living, though, that deals with mathematics is going to bring understanding into the new encounterings of knowledge that he encounters. You know what I mean? The new encounterings with knowledge, right? With absolute truth that he says this is knowledge, this is truth, this adds on to it. Part of that understanding also attracts a particular type of knowledge that is in line with the understanding. See? So when we look at understanding knowledge, we're also looking at understanding that is also an add-on. And it isn't something that's completely different. It often is something that is similar to the framework, the mindset that is developing you, because you move with your understanding. You know, when we say as a man thinketh, so is he. What is he thinking? He's thinking and expressing himself through his understanding, right? So it's his understanding that is drawing up a similar type of knowledge. It doesn't mean that new knowledge um, is something that he can't encounter. It just means that he has to work himself to find that type of new knowledge. You see, this is very important to what I'm saying, because I was saying before about the idea of the student challenging themselves to new curricula, to new ideas. This is something that doesn't always happen. You know what I mean? Um, and that's why people become experts at certain fields and they cannot really expand, right? So, and that happens to all of us, though. So these are all things to think about. There is no correct way in this, you know. Peace to everybody. That's Consolidine and KC Johnson. Peace. Rome. Peace, Rome. Justice. Right? Smells good, my man. I forgot your honorable name. Your righteous name smells. Let me know. Always remind me if I forget. Sham God. Peace. Don't know. You seem familiar. I don't know if I've seen that name, Sham God King, in here. But if anybody has any questions about this course, what I'm trying to do here, you're not really a student of mine if you're watching this class. You're a student of mine, though, if you're emailing me and contact me outside of the classroom. What this class is, though, is what it always was, free to the public, whether people were walking into the classroom or that they click into it as they can now. And when I get back to law school, it'll be the same thing as it always has been. And hopefully just an even greater machine. But peace to God, justice. All right. Yeah, my man, justice. Yeah. Again, if you have any questions about the way the course is, I don't talk about this. That's Peace Rome. I don't talk about this. As far that much to the online classroom. But the real purpose of this course, though, like what was if you can't teach someone to be God, can't teach one to be earth, even if they're not the original man, woman, and you're teaching them to learn about righteousness and that all humanity has the possibilities and the deserved right to work themselves with knowledge that they have a right to be a righteous man or woman. That cannot be the goal of any classroom at a law school in Mecca, because it is impossible to make people be. Okay? You can't make people be. Even if you think you are, it is incorrect. You know what I mean? I find it to be incorrect for many reasons. You know what I mean? This has to be something of their own accord. You know what I mean? And also the pressure of the teacher can make it seem like that is what they are pushing for the curriculum, their personal curriculum of growth and development. And that's just not it. That's just not it. Um, it is that people get this knowledge and have the choice to be who they truly are. You know what I mean? Um, and willingly, that is a righteous man, woman at the root of it. You know, Saladin, you said peace in order to understand, see Allah, right? As knowledge, all we have to do is come together as culture. Indeed, indeed. You know what I mean? I will say this though, because as we learn about the whole, we also learn about, when we talk about seeing Allah, is also to understand how you bring the knowledge to this outside world. Okay, your understanding, right, is what will be able to take any piece of knowledge that you have and make it a culture that is shared to the world. All culture is shared. There is no culture that's kept quiet. So you may be living this culture, and I mean rhetorically, one may be living this culture for themselves. They got the knowledge, but they don't teach anybody this and that. But the truth is that if they're really living it out, then that means that they will have works and creations and a reality. And if this reality is fulfilled, then they're always teaching someone by deed, action, by work. And we always have to seek this mindset. Okay. All right. I'll get into any of your questions as we go along, but I want to get into 30 questions that the God sent me. Excellent questions. I want to answer them because I think that the perfect questions from a newborn, someone that is getting the knowledge and have a simplicity to them that I often and anyone often overlooks, and even other newborns have overlooked in the way that they learn. You know what I mean? And in this way of learning, because we're not always around the gods every day, we don't always have like the daily lives amongst the gods to see how it walks and talks. So that's why some of these questions develop this way. All right. Let's get some of these questions. And if you have your own questions or anything like that, please throw them in there. All right. Okay. All right. The first question is, who taught Allah knowledge of self? I remember now, Allah the Father was in the mosque. Okay. So the real revelation of the knowledge of self is not so much the curricula that was pretty much not very revelatory compared to it was the same what he was getting from everybody else. There wasn't any new revelations he was getting from anyone. He's different from other students in NOI from what I was taught. It is really his interpretation of that knowledge degree. Right? Who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe, right? Father of civilization was added by the Father himself, right? And so it sounds so awkward. You see, I had to take that pause though, because I don't know how to quote. It's hard to quote it like that, right? But I want to make that note that for him, remember, this is someone that added Father of civilization to the knowledge degree, the most important degree in 120 lessons, the revelatory degree of who we are. He actually added that last piece to it, right? Right? Who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, Father of civilization and God of the universe. what I think, what I've been taught is that what makes what he did different is his understanding. His understanding was completely different than what was being dealt with. And that's what really became the teacher. This idea that what you didn't know was not just a blueprint to be believed. And then I think in his case, though, even without other curricula, other scientific curricula, he certainly believed it fairly immediately. The NOI, even though they deal with belief, they do teach a heavy knowledge-based curriculum, right? Which is heavy, which is also consistent with the knowledge, uh, the knowledge-based curricula of um, all of Islamic history. You know, just as a kind of a connection. You know what I mean? And I think that's why the language, the perspective, the spiritual perspective of bringing this knowledge of self as far through the Islamic mindset is also crucial to combat Christianity, because it is so much more based on the sciences, so much more based on knowledge being a crucial component of it, particularly mathematics. You know, among the many mathematical sciences. You know. All right, hold on. I just thought of something that I want to talk about. Take the time to talk about and reiterate. Um, the side note, I'll talk about Mecca later. Um, I saw some, and I don't know if he's on here. I saw the God Supreme Scientist really going in with on Dark Kim about Mecca and stuff like that, and I find it to be kind of a shame, because I know Supreme Scientist. I know the worth of his insights, and respected to the highest degree. And also, of course, Dark Kim. That's my big brother. That's, you know, that's who I came up with. I'm under the wing, you know, and I understood what both were saying, and I just want to speak on that and clarify some of that without having spoken to Dark Kim or Supreme Scientist, just keeping it neutral to what I think, because I think some of the things that Supreme Scientist was saying had merit, but I think that what Dark Kim was trying to explain was being lost in translation and taken as like ego. Um, and I just want to add on about that, because many of the things Dark Kim said are pretty much identical to what I was saying, and you know, so I'll talk about that later. I want to get through these questions from O, so that way, you know, he can get all in one shot. But I'm making mental note to wait to expect that later. I'm going to do that. There's a lot of questions to answer. A lot of people have questions. You know what I mean? But I'll address the thing with Supreme Scientist and Dark Kim a little bit later. Yeah, so when Allah was getting the knowledge to me, who taught him knowledge of self was really the interaction of these revelations that he was having himself. And with those that left the mosque with him, and especially with the firstborn, that interplay and the development of supreme mathematics, pretty, to me, the greatest scholarly, the greatest scholarly build I've ever seen, as far as a philosophical nature, um, and of course of a spiritual nature that is concrete and real. Um, you know, this is all himself. I mean, this is why he was a real genius. Okay, so I hope that starts to answer the question. No, people taught him that the black man was God. People taught him about the ancient civilizations, and I'm sure the NOI taught him so much of that, too much of that, a magnificent amount of that. But the knowledge of self, to actually say that no, this lesson isn't talking about some God in the future, or when far deems it fit to return and anoint. I realize that what is here is an actual fact. And so if it is, then we will apply it now. You see? And that actualization is such a big word. I've been saying this all the years I've been teaching them. Actualization is really the jewel of why the Father is so self-taught. Let me go see, because I see some things here from Justice. You know what I'm saying? That are relevant to this. Peace, Malik. Rome, you said that's 5% as do. Okay, let me wait on that question. Okay, let me wait on that question, Rome. It's a good question. Yes, Saladin. Yeah, Father of Civilization is something that was added. If you get books that have it now from the NOI, they added that. Just said this is true, God, to me, because in FY Supremacy, that part's not in the NOI 1 to 10. Yeah. Although I've seen some of them that added, you know what I'm saying? But hey, look, I've been in Mecca all these years, so I've seen NOI tell people today's math, and I'm like, you know what I mean? It more. I don't know. Sometimes it looks like to me when I see stuff like that, it's just a little awkward. It's more like, to me, it's like Draymond Green taking a three at the at half line. You know, yeah, y'all set the screen, but you take that shot, and you're not the ones that take that shot because you still advocate mystery. You know, so just as Draymond Green shouldn't be taking the shot, the 3-pointer at the half court line. It's really the gods that were Steph Curry and took that shot, and it was really the Father that took that shot 90 feet away. You know what I'm saying? But as I use a sloppy basketball metaphor to make the point. Question here: did the ancients have knowledge of self? Knowledge of self means that you know that you're the true and living, and that you know that there's no mysterious being, energy, or force that controls your reality. Much of my teaching is about showing the connections within the ancient cultures and how they had this knowledge of self in some kind of way. I think if it doesn't seem that way, it's because of our interpretation of those ancient texts, particularly the ancient digs and archaeological finds. The scholars that go in there, be they original or grafted, they're going in there with the mindset of saying, what mysteries and what things did these people pray to? So you see, you already come up with a thing. It's like almost like, for example, let's keep it easier. Someone is going back into ancient cultures and saying, I want to find out what type of meats they ate. And so in your mind, it's like they have to have eaten these type of things. So then what type of things they ate, right? These are assumptions that could be made. You know what I mean? The same thing with a person's spirituality. As an archaeologist, if you even assume that they dealt with that, then you're making a mistake. Just like when we go through the ancient Buddhist texts, they didn't deal with a mysterious being, energy, or force. There is no God concept that they are proclaiming as far as the creator or anything like that. And the Buddha nature, that supreme nature, is automatically within you. But unlike what we deal with, the reason that they claim, this is generalizing all of the many sects of Buddhism. The reason that they claim that one is supreme in this way and they all have a Buddha nature is because they say that the mind creates everything, but they also say that the mind creates whatever it does create. So everything is a support illusion, right? So we don't bear witness to that. We do bear witness that everything is everything. You know what I mean? Everything is real. You know? But so even though the typical if I were to lump it all up together, the Buddhist concept, right? The Buddhist concept is that they all see themselves as creating this reality, but that this created reality is also an illusion. And science itself is a justification for those illusions, right? So reality is not always necessarily real in the Buddhist mindset. You know what I mean? And that fits into with the Eightfold Path, because then this reality of suffering is so much easier to let go of if you realize that it's all illusion, all Maya, right? As they say, right? So of course the ancients had knowledge of self. When we go into ancient Taoist texts, we see it when we go into many of the Hindu yogic philosophies, the Sufic philosophies of Islam. It's all there. It's all there in different ways. Uh, but nothing is as explicit as what we teach. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have knowledge of self in that parameter. You know, it's all different, right? I think that the more in the East, where we only can reference this, the original people, when we talk about the ancients, I think that the more major teaching was not who you are, but letting go of what you think you are, and that the knowledge of self would be something that would come across naturally. This is a difference. This is a big difference in that, you know, very big difference in that. All right. Saladin, when you write that letter to become a member of the FY, who are people actually writing to? Elijah and Fard, now deceased, right? That's a good question. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. You know what I mean? I would imagine that every letter is taken from some minister or people that's, you know. Just as the God just said, it's not writing to either. It's just a part of proficiency to get tracks. You have to do the letter, 110 student enrollment, actual facts. Oh, that's peace, God. That's peace, God. You know? I guess that's something that developed over time. You know what I mean? But if you wrote a letter to me to get into the nation, it'd be more like for me to help teach you and see how you write, though. Because I'm always curious how people write. Right? All right. Interesting question. Is God attracted to the sun, moon, and stars, or so? Why? We made the sun, moon, and stars. You know what I mean? So just as they have attracting powers, though, there's a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? This is our home. This is how we made it. So I think there's a synergy. And if we call that synergy attraction, then there is a balance. You know what I'm saying? There is a balance. You know? I think when people get into astrology now and they say that this here is there and that means this and this is in retrograde and this is all that, it's not so much that I discount the reality of understanding the patterns of we are outside, but I think that that is not a real the proper mindset. I think that to be in tune with all things, it has to come from within to without, not from without to within. I think that analysis of ourself will understand. I truly think that the ancient Phoenicians, those people of Kemet, those Dogon people, all of them, I truly think that they were analyzing themselves and finding that metaphor outside of themselves and understanding what was around them the more that they understood themselves. See, I don't think it's the other way around. You know what I mean? The Tao says, how do I know all that is outside of me? And by what is within me is the answer, you know? So I don't really bear witness, you know, um, to anything else as far as that goes. Okay, just click something here. All right, let's see what's going on here. All right. Indeed, appreciate you, Justice, for that. Where are we here in the questions? All right. Number 4, I don't know if I have a particular answer to this. You know what I mean? Who is the first civilization to encounter the devil? This is a good thing. I haven't overtly matched it up to an ancient civilization, but it certainly would be anything that was in the Horn of Africa, you know, around that time, you know, 4,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? But then we have 2 points. We have the 4,000 years ago, but we also have 6,000 years ago. Okay, so any of the dynasties that were in existence during those times would have been the ones that encountered it. You know, and I'm sure that the best source, which a book that I haven't read in quite a while, definitely years, in its totality, is Destruction of Black Civilization, because that would give the real framework. You know, and if I was looking for a text, that would be where I would go immediately with that. I don't know if I have that text though. I don't have. I only have it as a sloppy PDF, unfortunately. All right. Let's see. I got another question from Malik here. Along with, let me go back to these questions, side questions. Rome, you said as 5%ers, do you think we could come together and start building farms, getting land to plant food to prevent this food shortage of going to the future remaining secure for us? We could do that. We could do anything. I think that's a skip ahead, though. I think what's interesting is that it doesn't matter what food people make. It's in the mentality of the people of what diet and everything is. You know what I'm saying? The truth is that when we talk about food shortage, it's not really a food shortage of junk. You know what I mean? And it's also how we eat that's going to be the beginnings of that. You know what I mean? And I don't think that we could agree to make any type of sustainable farming though if we don't have an a much deeper analysis of what our diet is. You know what I'm saying? Than that, you know. Then I think we can really come together and be useful with that, you know. But sometimes it seems moot because we are in societies, and the only way is to actually fight against society, as opposed to have a mentality to just do it for yourself. Because we also need industry to manufacture some type of massive industrioususness to consistently process, even the with minimal natural processing, some of the things that we would need to have a complete diet, you know. And I just gotta say this, like, where would we earn the right? And this is in general, not 5%ers, but where would we as a people earn the right to say, oh, it's food shortage, I'll just grow my own food now? To have some kind of rebellion that is personal, when every time there is something to rebel against that is overtly done against us that causes all this, we do nothing, you know? Because a lot of these shortages were because we didn't look into and really didn't disagree to the real reasons why there was quarantine and all this stuff was to destroy small businesses, industrialize things further, you know. And no one really mass rebelled against, any of the mandates or any of the biogenetic therapy that was synthetic biogenetic therapy that was being thrown at us. Stuff that absolutely deteriorates the body, but also sets up a reality in the individual where they now will continue to need more, more genetic modification, right? All right. I hope that answers the question. I know I went totally far, but I answered that question looking much farther in advance than just growing a couple of tomatoes and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because that won't really do it, though. You know what I'm saying? It won't really do it. Peace, Malik. You said, what is the practical way of us viewing? I'd rather have you say, how do I view it? Because I don't really like to teach degrees as you must view it this way. I show you how it can be viewed and how it could be misviewed. But I want you to have your own view, your own understanding of it, though. But why doesn't the devil teach that? Because he decides to make slaves out of all that he can so they could rob them and live in luxury, right? Well, first, the obvious that is in the degrees prior, teaching that there is a mystery God. You know what I'm saying? And basically taking away that power from the people, right? But by doing this, he can make slaves out of all that he can, right? I don't I gotta say, Malik, I don't know if there's any other way to view this degree. You know what I'm saying? Because what we deal with today, though, in this information age, though, is the manifestation of trick knowledge. You know what I mean? Right? We have fact checking agencies that fact check industry that they are paid that is paying for the fact checking. So we see big pharma have fact checkers, but we look through the fact checkers. The fact checkers are from big pharma. You know what I mean? As an example, since I'm continuing with that example, right? So now when things are verified, validated as knowledge, you know what I'm saying? And then people act, knowledge, wisdom. When people are see things as knowledge is validated, then they will act upon it. They will use it. They will acknowledge the wisdom. You know what I'm saying? They will take it from knowledge to wisdom. And they're having a misunderstanding. You know what I mean? And this is how you rob them and live in luxury. You know what I mean? So we have to have a better frame. Oh, the framework of deciding what is the trick knowledge out of knowledge is an endless work, an absolutely endless work. I hope that. Oh shit! I didn't even do the knowledge though. You asking about the 1 to 14? I'm building on the 1 to 4. You know what I mean? Um, I had a build. You get a free build, right? And a cup of soda. I don't. But in the 1 to 14, the FOI, it's military. You know what I'm saying? A larger build, which I won't get into too much, but when I teach students that have gone through all of the 1 to 14, I tell them that the entire 1 to 14 is all of it. Every last degree is military training. The entire thing. You know what I'm saying? The entire lost found lesson number 1 is military training. You know what I mean? Just remember that, right? The point of the MGT and GCC, for example, is also teaching them how to deal with things abroad. You know what I'm saying? Right? How to deal with things properly, right? Protocols. Anytime you see protocols, you know what I'm saying? Pledges of integrity and honor in the battlefield of life, the 11th degree, right? Right? The orders, the directives, and that flow of directives and teaching, right? What is the meaning of captain, lieutenant, right? Right? And the fruit of Islam, right? Given to the name, right? His name given to the military training of men that belong to Islam in North America, right? That fruit of Islam, though, is the warrior aspect. That once you've given your word as bond, though, like, it's funny because we're always telling like, oh, she's got to be MGT, GCC, she got to be right exact. But we're kind of skipping that demand. We have to be soldiers. We have to be warriors. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's not quite what a soldier is. We're not ready to just attack upon order, but to analyze the reality and give ourselves the righteous command of how we deal with situations. You know what I mean? And know how to live a daily life in this constant war. How should we be seeing that? You know what I'm saying? In the alphabet, it's father of the cipher I, right? FOI, father of cipher I. You know what I mean? What is the warrior work of the father of the cipher of I? And what is the real fruit of Islam for us? The fruit of Islam is the children. And so what we do is we learn how to protect them. We learn more, right? So that we could show them that the best way to protect themselves is to have the ability to delve into their understanding, to develop understanding, right? Right? But at its most simple, hey, we gotta be warriors. We gotta learn how to martially defend ourselves. We have to be able to analyze situations martially. You know what I'm saying? We have to be militant minded in how we approach situations. You know what I mean? Right? And that means calm and collective, just not angry and responsive. Right? I hope that builds. Because I went into the 1 to 40 and I read it fast. Right? Complete. You said when the thoughts went outside of stuff, it happens with savage in the pursuit. Doesn't it? Yeah, I think so. You know what I'm saying? I think that, like, to me, the 12 jewels, I've always hated that happiness is in there because it kind of conflicts with the degree, but it's a word because it would be whack to most people if it was love, peace, and contentment. Because I think there's a happiness in the 12 jewel is a different word than the pursuit, savage in the pursuit of happiness. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about happiness, though, what would that really be? You know what I'm saying? What does that really entail? You know? Complete, you said diet affects the thinning of the blood. Indeed, that would be certainly, absolutely. You know what I mean? And over time, that would. All right, Justice, your question you said is what are your thoughts with other Kemetic teachers when they say they're praying or tapping into their higher self instead of just saying that they're um, higher and lower self? I always felt like was an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Because what happens is that you kind of assume that things only are supreme though if you're in a zone, if you're into it though. I don't really bear witness to that. You know what I mean? I think that it's I lost my place here. That you tap into your higher self though. That's really, to me, many people just saying that they get into a zone. You know what I mean? And if they get into some kind of zone, that kind of zone, can it be seen as reality? Can it be seen as a consistent reality all the time? The average person would say no, and so then what would they be back into? The normal self. So it's a way of saying that, to me, it still exotifies. The problem with the mystery God, it doesn't matter if the mystery God is exalted or demonizing, meaning that if it is demonizing as it's the vision of a white man, or if it's the vision of this supreme, uh, in tune, always on point, supreme being, original, black man that has superpower, because you can only tap into it on occasion, right? It's a problem. It's a problem. And for someone, and I don't want to say this, but in the things that I do, I don't have like moments where I'm thinking like, I didn't really tap into my higher self, or what we would call a zone. You know what I'm saying? Because it is so, it's a natural, logical process. So, like, in other words, I know how to do things to just jumpstart it, whether it's a creative process, whether it's in training or anything like that. You know what I mean? And if I feel down, or if I feel sad, or if I feel some kind of depressed, then I'm aware with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm aware with that. You know what I'm saying? Because if we're people that have love and that we have care to the 85, to the reality that we are in, to this world that we are building, then that means that all of the feelings and the emotions and the realities that we have will always fluctuate. So does it mean that we have a lower self versus a higher self? so to be a lower self. I mean, I don't, you know, most of the people, for example, I know that have reached tapped into some of the most creative realities that show and prove the black man is God. That was when they felt their lower self. So I don't really bear witness to all that. You know what I mean? And I think that it's just exalting of things. You know what I mean? So I think it's a little insufficient. You know what I'm saying? I also think it even to like I was saying before. I think it may even be a continued interpretation of what people see as the ancients' mystery gods, or how they dealt with the mystery god. And people don't care. They just care that the shade of the mystery god. And that's a very low level. You know what I'm saying? And they just care if it's different than the Western world. And in trying to be different than the Western world, you're kind of doing the same thing. It is very westernized, that approach, to me. Right? All right. Malik, you corrected me, and I see it late because definitely got that extra build on degree. Complete, you said the wrong foods cause us to behave slightly different than we would otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. A little add-on I saw, you know what I'm saying? There's a book, Sugar, Salt, Fat. I forget if it's in that order. Let me see if it's let me see the proper order. I love reading these books. They're very sugar, salt, fat. Yeah, sugar, salt. No, I said it wrong. Salt, sugar, fat. Right? But this is a wonderful book. Try to. All right, let me see if I can put the title in the comments here. This book, among many others, but this one always comes to mind because it's really, really great. It really shows that today, the details of the taste buds have already been scientifically found, and that's a recent thing in the last 10, 15 years. But because of that, wrong foods can actually be something that is deliberately directed in an approach directly taken to manipulate. So, even more so than before, once you start eating the wrong foods, it is scientifically difficult to stop. You know what I mean? Right? Why, as you said, Peace, growing food for yourself is not about sustaining our food supply. It's about recalibrating the brain to work correctly with these thoughts we put out there, the mindset. Wise, I agree with that. I agree with that. I didn't say growing food was wrong, right? But that wasn't the question. Right? The question was really to actually be able to combat a food shortage. Okay, so if that's the question, though, then no, it will not do that. It will not sustain that. But I actually think that the goal, if we're doing it as a community, is why I brought this up too. I don't think that even in the nation we're of one mind of what a real diet ought to be, the consistency of a correct diet. So that means that the consistency of what we take on will be too varying, too many arguments. You know what I mean? I don't think that we're set like that. I still think too many in our nation, eat atrociously, and they only have a minus pork capability, which to me is like low level. To me, not eating pork and any kind of pork derived products, or using pork derived products like soaps and things like that, right? Because most of your bar soaps, it's animal fats, right? To me, that's free throws. You know what I mean? That's free throws. If that's all you can do, it's a low level. And I've always been straight out and saying that. Indeed, Justice. Like, wonderful plug moment here, Justice, because when we made that song, when we made our song, right, the 9,000 mile song, did we tap it? We tapped into our higher self and then now, like, what do we go back to? So it's very capitalistic too. Like, we tap into our higher selves to make a product, and in this case, creativity is the product. Output is the product. You know what I mean? This is a problem I have with that. You know what I mean? So we only tapped in so we can make something dope. So, we only make something to tap in. I can't bear witness to that at all. You know what I mean? Prescribed laws, Malik. Prescribed is prescription, right? It means somebody gave them. So in that sense, though, it's something that has been consistently agreed on. What do we say is prescribed is basically what we see as mathematically in tune. So what can be prescribed is how we see things, right? Like, for example, the duty is to teach, though, right? So that means that the prescription, right? The prescription of how we deal with things, though, is in line with supreme mathematics, in line with this knowledge of self. You see? And so it's a constant prescription, right? I think that if we try to take it Islamic, because these are their teachings, but they become our lessons. Supreme wisdom, it is their teachings, but it is our lessons. Okay. All right. So we have to reverse the polarity on those concepts, apply it to us. All right. 7. That piece. Complete. Yeah. Order what I order what I can from the. Yeah. As long as you adding on with as many original people as you can that do it right. All right, another question. Did Mayor John Lindsay have knowledge of self? From what I know, he understood what the father was trying to do. So as far as that goes, I don't think that he had knowledge of self. You know what I mean? As the way that it's being asked to me, like he saw that, his reality as a white man, and that he would be a righteous man. I think that he had the mentality of a righteous man and was consistently in agreement with that path that the father was teaching it. So, it's different. I can't say that, he was like, man is God. I see myself as a righteous man because I overcome the history of which I come out of, and the reality, right? No, I can't say that. All right. Were the first wave of Bloods in New York 5%ers? No. It's after God start teaching them, though. They start saying 50-50 and have one foot in, still being blood, Damu, and then also, teaching that. I think some of the confusion comes too, if we historically, is that the gods that were first learning with the Father, they called themselves the Blood Brothers. You know what I mean? So elders like Umallah, Jamal, other firstborns, right? Remember the perfection. They called themselves the Blood Brothers because they were now brothers. And sometimes in the history of that terminology gets confused with those first waves of people calling themselves Bloods and stuff, and also the gods trying to teach those Bloods and them not really getting rid of that gang. Like, I had many students that were in that, and in the 2000s, and I never taught them to be out of something. That to be this, you have to be out of something. But I taught them that if you whatever you stay in, though, you have to be God in that cipher. In other words, that, you know, whatever you're doing is now in the name of Allah, which is you being righteous, true and living God. You know what I mean? And that means that, you know, you can engage. You know what I mean? If you still deal with that, but then you would be by default changing that reality. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that that was possible for everybody, but you know, I can't make people do things. I can only show them civilization, righteousness, right? And those that are willing to have it, the knowledge of self, right? Are there any gods in the government, politicians, etc.? Yes. There was a god that was a councilman or something like that. I know Saladin did some, not Saladin, Saladin Khan. I know he did some stuff in the political arena, but and other gods have done activism with politicians, etc., etc. You know, I can't name them all though, but no, no 5%er I know that's on a really high level in politics that I know of. Although I could be wrong, like, you know, like a mayor or a congressperson or something like that. I don't know, you know. All right, let me see. Next question is kind of a. All right, Malik, let me know if I answered that question right. To a useful insight. The guy asks, is the government right and exact? I'm a revolutionary. I could never consider this government right and exact. Is the reality of government right and exact? I think in some way, as we build, as a society builds and develops different fields of operation, to have them interact cohesively, there has to be some type of governing in place. And then that would be a consistent government. It's in those interactions that make it seamless between industry, agriculture, military, policing, education, etc., etc. When those, it is the connection points, right, that connect everything that most people are blind to, right? And that's what governance is making sure those connections are correct. I think that when those are manipulated, then we have something that is not right and exact. You know what I mean? But the concept of the government, I don't see as incorrect. I see that, of course, I consider that when I think in general, if I had to generalize, then I think governments that become too large are not right and exact. I think it's insufficient in this time that the most righteous governments can be those of a small local reality. And the more local this entire world becomes, the more right and exact it'll be. Right? What's the difference between wise and intelligent? Intelligent means someone has many facts. You know what I'm saying? Wise means that they have experience with profound facts that are knowledge, that are actual tested knowledge, that are not just uh, manipulated as the could be manipulated statistics, are consistently always true, and have actually put them into use and experience. So that would be the difference between wise and intelligent. You know what I mean? However, when people use the word intelligent, it means someone that can draw up the right information when needed. And so an intelligent person can also be synonymous with wise. You know what I mean? All right. All right. Let's see. More questions. It's crazy. I've only answered 9 of them. Who were some of the first gods in Europe? I don't even have to answer this question because there's a great book, African Origin. Let me see. African Origin. Oh. Striking the Diop's African Presence books. African Presence in Early Europe. That's where you go. Let me see if I have that. yeah, I do have this book as a PDF. You know what I mean? And if you're ever able to buy it, do so. That's all I'm gonna say. Do so. Anything by Evan Van Sertima is essential. All right. All right. More questions. Where am I? Who told Allah that he was God? It was when he came back, and his wife was already in the Nation of Islam, and she told him what she was learning. So then she would have learned that he would learn that there's a place that teaches something different than the Christianity, and that the black man is God, right? But no one told him that. It is his interpret. Again, this is we kind of answered this already, right? But it's his interpretation of that. You know? I'm gonna skip a question to the right. One question says, how long did it take Allah to make supreme math and alphabet? From what I know, it probably took maybe a year or two. You know what I mean? Building back and forth, but a lot faster than really supposed to. That is expected. You know what I'm saying? But then now to this other question: can you find supreme mathematics in nature? You know what I'm saying? Um, I'm not sure what that means, because like when we look at the idea of culture, when we look at the idea of interaction of things, you know what I'm saying? A foundation, all civilization has foundations that are built. So if we look at a beehive, an ant farm, an ant colony, we're looking at a foundation of knowledge, the way that they will behave, you know what I'm saying? The exercises that they take, you know what I mean? When we're looking at the earth, and that the way that the earth moves, the way it regenerates itself, and it has that synergy between things, this is equality, you know what I mean? So when we look at nature itself, to me, I think that's exactly where math is, you know what I'm saying? When we look at life itself outside of ourselves, right? We're looking at the process of born all the time, you know what I'm saying? And when we look at the ruthlessness of nature, we are seeing build and destroy. You know, it's so crazy because the idea of build and destroy isn't every step you take. You know, like technically, when you take a step and you move, you're actually moving the earth. It is so minuscule, so difficult to measure, but that friction of destruction of the earth and moving of the earth is exactly how you're able to move. You know what I mean? So it's our duty. It's a wonderful quest to go out there and see how supreme math and the interaction of these mathematics, you know what I mean, are in everything. And every time you go through a day's degree, like understanding knowledge, though, this is what you do out there. You know what I'm saying? So just as I explained it for ourselves, you have animal life, right? Intelligent animals that are able to have thoughts, right? And perceive things consistently. Then they're able to deal with new forms of knowledge, though, and make their own what choices that they see as advantageous to themselves. The forms of mathematics, though, you know what I mean? It's in everything, right? Whether it is with us most supremely or not, sometimes it's also irrelevant to the existence of the supreme mathematics everywhere. The exception to the mayor having the flag was because he was the one who was willing to support the nation. The first universal flag pins that were made were actually made by the mayor. He was the one that gave the okay for it, though. Okay, so that ought to be a good enough reason for him to be given a flag. You know what I'm saying, right? Okay. All right. Another question. Why is the universal flag black and yellow? Simple. Represent the points. Represent the 8 points divided into two, black and yellow. Represent the 16 shades of the original man from black through brown to yellow. Right. So, right. Does Asiatic mean black? No, it does not. You know what I'm saying? No, it does not. Asiatic means of Asia. You know what I mean? And in this case, Asia meaning Pangea, the entire planet. You know what I'm saying? Right? So the next question is the term Asiatic in the lesson because of Asia Minor, Asia Major? No. In the etymology of Pangea, which is when the entire planet landmass was one piece, there many etymologists say that the word Asia comes from Pangea, right? And that particular landmass of Asia becomes the word. But originally, that's where the word comes from, though. So, so when we build, that's what it really means, though. It means the entire planet. Right? Our nation of gods and earth sovereign. We're not really tested like that as far as our sovereignty, right? But as far as this nation, though, we are individuals. You know what I'm saying? We are individuals. So everything would be sovereign the way that we deal with how we deal with things. You know what I'm saying? That's why things like trademarking our flag and stuff like that are very are shown to be useless, right? Because as we are a nation of individuals, right? Sacrificing individuals, sharing all that they have for this knowledge of self. So, we have complete sovereignty. Sovereignty. If love is the highest form, oh no, wait, that's a good question, but hold on. I want to go on over. Can an earth rule or be a ruler? Absolutely, absolutely. You know what I'm saying? I think rule is different. I think like when we look at the word ruler, we're looking at someone that is making the decree. You know what I'm saying? And I think in many levels, though, it depends on the cipher. The earth does make decrees on certain levels. You know what I'm saying? As far as like, is the earth the rule or ruler? Of course, I don't bear witness to that. You know what I'm saying? I bear witness to the original man is the true and living God. So he is the ruler of himself. You know what I'm saying? And the entire universe. But there are levels to rule, right? So, so I definitely bear witness to the earth having levels of rule, you know what I'm saying? And also being a ruler of her own destiny on many levels. You know what I mean? For anybody to be synergistic with anyone, right? Especially man and woman, God and earth, she has to have a certain level of rulership over her own reality, right? A command of herself, right? Because then the command, if she is only dealt with by the rule of God, then it's really based on his power, not on her sincerity and her reality, right? And that's a reality, you know what I mean? Right? Your power might be making the earth. She may not be the earth, though. You know. Now he said, if love is the highest form of understanding, are there other forms before you get to that? I think love has many levels of understanding, actually. You know what I mean? Like love for the people, love for those that you care for. But I think when we say love is the highest form of understanding, it also includes that with that individual you're with, that you're willing to, and this is where the unconditional part is, that because you have these things that you do understand that are solid foundation, right? Like the knowledge of self, then that means that all of the other aspects you're willing to unconditionally work at to see and understand where they are coming from, you see, and grow with them and develop with them and question them, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a living, growing process, you know what I mean? But certain things have to be foundation, you know? They start dealing with a mystery, though, then you got no foundation, you know what I mean? Right? All right. Is a black, brown, oh, you know, and as far as like other forms and stuff like that, I don't want to put reality in such a box like that. You know what I'm saying? Because all human interaction is different levels, you know? So to say that there are forms and stuff like that, I'd rather say that there are levels and they could fluctuate, you know? Right? And that highest form of understanding can be different with different people, right? All right. Is a black, brown, yellow, and culture seed equal? Nah, nothing is equal to the black, brown, and yellow. That's the original man. You know, the culture seed is someone that is a seed. Really, the main difference between the culture seed being grafted, the white seed being grafted, is that it would not normally occur, right? In order for its existence to be, it has to be altered in manipulation, and this manipulation is part of the breeding process that is based on devilishment. It is based on a destructive process that weakens the seed to be, right? So if the seed was allowed, that culture seed is allowed to then continue to live under only the conditions of righteousness, then slowly but surely it would graft itself back to the original, right? And that's why where it's different. And part of that grafting back, though, is the knowledge of self. Uh, you know the question here: why is there only 120 lessons? Why is there only 120 lessons? There's actually 122. Two are repeated. But the real reason is because that's what he felt was most useful and would fit. You know what I mean? Like a body of information that they could deal with and consistently use. Because there were a lot of other things, you know. But the problem book, which was in their hands, and a couple of other things, just weren't found to be like necessary to really delve in and analyze. As far as like something to memorize and stuff, you know what I mean? The real goal was to have a set of lessons that would speak directly to the immediate insights needed of who we are, where we are, and who everyone is. And 120 pretty much sums that up. Problem book and some of the other stuff are totally different. High science. What's an example of high science, and is it good or bad? High science just means we're talking about like, you know, if I talk about this knowledge of self, if I start talking about, you know, more complex topics, they're not day to day necessity things. You know what I'm saying? What's called city science, like basic realities. So it's not that they're bad. It's just whether the person is ready for it, though, right? Well, let me go back to some of these comments here. Complete God, you said the first six. As far as the supreme reality, obviously, you know what I mean, going through the mathematics. But I think that you can see the mathematics in everything. You know what I mean? That's really what I meant. Oh, Justice Jackson, if I met Azrael. Of course, I knew Azrael very well. You know what I mean? We built many times, many times. And he often would sit in my class a lot. You know what I mean? He's a great man. You know what I mean? You know, he's funny. Um, he was not funny like laughing. I'm not gonna say we laughed at him, but he had a funny style of, you know, he was quirky. That's a good word. You know, he would build, but he also was very quirky. You know, Um, the way his diction, the way that he talked, like he really worked hard to learn this. You know what I mean? Like, because like a lot of the other gods, him himself, he just was like a lot of them in that respect that he wasn't very well educated. You know what I'm saying? And in Madawan, though, he suffered greatly. You know what I mean? He was actually, when the father met him, if I remember correctly, he was going through shock therapy. Yeah, yeah. Ezra was always at the school all the time. So he was at my class a lot. You know what I mean? I don't know if see if I could find this real quick. The god Khalik Allah did a really great documentary on him. Yeah, you guys save this. This is something to watch later. You, you I mean by the quirkiness, pretty much everything. Now when you see stuff like this, it's you know, yeah, save that till you watch it later. You know what I mean? Right? But he's a really what's the greatest question ever asked pertaining to the nation? Wow, that's a stumper. Greatest question. That's a stumper. I have no idea. I think I think it's subjective. I don't think that there is a greatest question. I think it's more about you. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see one question as being the greatest. You know what I mean? I really couldn't decide. I mean, I've been asked crazy questions, but the greatest, I don't know. I don't know. Now, if we mean greatness as far as like importance, necessity, impactfulness, um, that fluctuates. Then that fluctuates because I think that the greatest type of question regarding a nation is um, how it fits with yourself, how the knowledge of you. You know what I mean? Your reality within that. You know what I mean? So if you're able to ask, if I get a question where a person is asking about the knowledge of self, why are they the true and living God? That's the question that built this nation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's it. The question of why we are the true and living God, that is the question that built this nation. It's a beautiful thing, man. You know, there is nothing else. These are. Let's read some of these other questions. These are my blue light filter glasses. Oh, good question here. Are the 12 jewels right and exact? Who came up with them? You know what? I was told this a long time ago, and I forgot who wrote the plus lesson of the 12 jewels. You know, um, do I see the 12 jewels as right and exact? it depends on the way people build with them. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's people ask me, and I actually think that I think RZA is one of the most profound builders on the 12 jewels I've ever heard. You know, it clearly is a plus lesson that has really impacted his entire life, and I think it's his understandings are very profound of what the intention of the 12 jewels is. As I was saying earlier in the class, 12 jewels isn't so impactful for me because I don't like happiness at the end. You know what I mean? I don't think that the goal that we have though is to get happy. You know what I mean? I think that when you have knowledge of self, we have to continue to work at realizing that we've been happy and content all this time. You know what I mean? And I think that's not something that can come through a list of rewards. You know what I mean? It just can't. Even though in reality it may feel that way, it may continue to be that way. I just don't see it right. For us, the food, clothing, for example, is something that is so difficult to do the right way. You know what I mean? In the greatest way, in a way that takes care of our children, and etc., etc. But if you can't find some level of happiness or be generally happy, then you're gonna have a problem no matter what. You know what I mean? So I've never been one with that. And the order is very important in the degrees, in the 12 jewels. And so that's why I don't necessarily, it's not my thing. I don't really build with it like that. You know? And they're not part of 120 though. It's a plus lesson. It's something that somebody wrote, and I think it's very profound. Just as I hope, like people, if they disagree with any of my plus lessons, I hope that they would just be used as how people can find them useful. If they are not useful, then they won't be good for that person. You know what I mean? But that little error is very important. What I consider an error is something I can't overlook, no matter how well it's built upon. Right? How many sides in a cipher? There are no sides in the cipher but one. And the whole entire reality of building in a cipher, like when we build in a cipher, kind of defines this. We deal with the concept of the best knower. So when you build in a cipher, right, the best knower can always be aligned perfectly to build with the entire group, right? And it also is a humility that anyone can be that best knower as long as they show and prove to be the knower that is best in that field that is being dealt with, right? So the cipher, the many sides in the cipher is always one. You know what I mean? Because the cipher is all looking into that center point. You know what I mean? So it's always one. We're looking at the cipher as a circle around, and we're looking at each part. But the purpose of the cipher is really to see the center. See? So there's only one side, that which sees the center. You know? Is every number in supreme math a degree? Yes. When you talk about like the degree, yeah, that's a degree. What is a degree and why is it called? But when we talk about degrees in 120, we're talking about the question statements or answers that we're referring to. You know what I'm saying? Right? But you would be more particular when we talk about mathematics. So you say the mathematics, though. You know what I'm saying? Right? Of course, the dialect will go, well, what's your degree? What's your physical degree? And that's be your age. You know what I'm saying? But if we're talking about mathematics and someone already knows we're talking about mathematics, then you could say something like, well, what degree are you referencing? Then I would say like, oh, I'm referencing the understanding, things like that. But generally, if it was mathematics, we'd be very particular to say that it was mathematics. Okay. Having confusion in the way that we speak a dialect, though, is always something to work on, and not just compound with more confusion, because it's not about building a code. And what can be done, and it's often done, and is not always bad. But that always has to be reminded within oneself that is not really the reason that we have our own dialect. The reason we have our own dialect is because these ideas are so profound. They cannot be communicated. They cannot be communicated in another way. You know. And I'm saying that as someone that out of, and this is something I truly see. if you look at the way I've taught these last 20 plus years, no one's really taught this way. So I can teach a long way into this knowledge of self without using the dialect and still be using this knowledge of self. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that the value of the dialect is profound, right? So that's something to take into account, you know. But quite okay. But so definitely a degree would normally be something in 120. First degree in 1 to 10, 12th degree in the 1 to 40, 1 to 14, the correct one we were talking about, right? See? Right? If you say what's today's degree, that wouldn't be referencing the mathematics. You see? That would be referencing the degree of the day, like 31st degree in the 140. Right? Okay, so it wouldn't be referencing understanding knowledge. You know what I mean? Right. All right. Continuing on. So it's a lot of great questions here, man. Is drawing up and doing the knowledge the same thing? Doing the knowledge means that you're studying what is being presented. You know what I mean? You're doing the knowledge to someone building, as myself. You're doing the knowledge to something you're watching, right? Whatever you're learning from. Drawing up is different. You know what I mean? Drawing up means, and most people are referring to how they deal with women and drawing it up, but really drawing up means that when a person is building, right? They are saying things that are having a profound effect on someone else. That because this knowledge is so rare and everyone's understanding makes it even more rare because it is unique, then when we're drawing up somebody is that they are really seeing the insights that you are bringing. You know what I'm saying? So it's more of an effect of someone building. You know what I'm saying? All right. All right. All right. Next question is really based on my entire curriculum's my one of my major thesis statements. You know what I mean? Let's say it like that. But he said the God asks, is God perfect? Okay. Um, it's the word perfect that is incorrect. Okay. We are imperfection. To be perfect means to be already done, right? That means it is finished. Someone is finished. They're no longer, you know, they're no longer building. Uh, when me and Kamal, right, the God Justice, right, when we made our song, no, there was a point where we felt like, yo, this song is perfect. Um, that means it's done, right? Things can be perfect, but the true and living God is endless. So that means that he is not perfect. He is always ever developing, right? So he is imperfection. The reason we are imperfection is because we always have the supreme capability and the proven expectation based on what we have already done to keep all the universe and creation going, and that we can always build. So whatever mistake we make can always be the lesson that is learned and that is built upon. So we are always in perfection, right? We're always in perfection. That's why what I teach is that perfection is constant elevation at an ever increasing rate. That is my major definition that I started all my teaching with back in 2000. But that ever increasing rate is not linear. The rate is not linear. In other words, it's not a line going up. In fact, it's a cipher that gets deeper and more profound. It expands in depth within. Okay, so it is an infinite cipher, but it has the direction that it can go back, like the Son of Man, right? God has a son, man has a son, and then man becomes a man. That son becomes the man as he grows up, and he has a son. That revolving reality of going back to go forward. Teach the babies, and then they learn more than you, and they eclipse you. That right? That rotation of depth, right? That's what I mean by ever increasing rate, because it gets deeper and deeper and more profound. And that is where the expansion is, an expansion that doesn't go outward, but goes inward, right? Just as the universe doesn't expand, because if it expanded, it would be expanding into something else. That expansion is inward, right? And so when I say, if we say God's perfect, then I don't bear witness to that. It means that we would be done. Okay. Sometimes one, right, like our big brother, Infinite Al Jamar, one of the greatest minds I've ever been blessed to build with. When I look at what he has done, and I've thought back all week with sadness that I won't get to hear his beautiful voice again in person. When I think back that there were moments where he almost returned to the essence and helped him get through that along with others, and he had more to do, and so he did more. When I look back on a person's life like Infinite Al Jamar, that life was perfect to me because it was always in perfection, and so it was perfect. You see, and that reality lives on. So he's in perfection, and he's forever remembered in perfection, because we will constantly be using the greatness of his understanding as we see it, and we accept the truth of it to be greater ourselves. This is profound. But when I look at that body, that body of work that was his found life, it's perfect. It's perfect. And just amazing. You know what I mean? So when people have these arguments about Medina and Mecca and things like that, and old and young and stuff, it just sounds stupid to me. And I had such a great relationship with these elders. A lot of people don't understand. I wouldn't be in the nation if it was for the peers. I didn't learn from, except for individuals as Darkim and a few others. I really learned from my elders. You know what I mean? Most of my peers, they weren't really about teaching. They were about emulating what they thought what God was, whereas the elders were teaching me to be God as uniquely as I have been. So as uniquely as I came into the nation, and mind you, I'm a Puerto Rican brother that's in hip hop. I do stuff in hip hop nobody is trying to do, because at that time I was trying to do it. I had to fulfill that as well. I'm a vegan for years already. Right? I've been a vegan for at least the fourth. I was going on that fourth year when I went and got the knowledge of self. So doing things totally different as a civilized man, getting knowledge of self, and from a different perspective than most people have. And it's also the inspiration why me and Justice did that song. Why it was so profound to do that song. You know what I'm saying? Because me and the God, we had built about our paths, and I texted God and I said, you know what, we should these different paths are what make this knowledge profound and universal, and we should do a song like that. You know what I'm saying? Because he wanted me to get on a song, that honor of being on a song with him. And I said, maybe we should do that. And the God Justice, a lot of people, he's King Kamal's MC. I mean, he wrote to me something amazing. And I was like, wow, it was so hard hitting. It was tough. It really gave an insight into his life. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, wow, I got to write something tough for that. And we did it. You know what I'm saying? But when I think of perfect, it's in a finite thing, something that's perfect. You know what I mean? Miles Davis' Kind of Blue album is perfect, right? The reality of Infinite Al-Jamar's is a reality that we'll be remembering in perfection because we'll be using it. But his life was, to me, a perfect reality of the 5%er. It is filled with squabbles with other 5%ers. I was there seeing him, just as we, and our peers, we might have squabbles, you know what I mean? But he was always building it. There was never a question. It was always building. And I learned so much about teaching. We had a whole year. I don't know. He just was around the nation, the school a lot. And, just step into my classroom and add on with certain things. I did the same thing happened with Fakim as well. He would add on a lot. He would come to my class and, this is why a lot of these elders, they're so profound to us, because Azriel, Fakim, Infinite Al-Jamar, these are people that, like, they would sit down and be taking notes and adding on, not disrupting, adding on. You know what I'm saying? And it would really be profound. And with Infinite Al-Jamar, I would build, and he would politely ask if he could add on something to that, and it would be like a side lecture. I'd be in the front, he'd be in the rear, and students would be ping-ponging. And it wasn't this egotistical battle of like, let me show that I know this, or let me keep it here. We would guide each other. That's the thing. It was egoless. You know what I mean? He would guide each other. He knew the things that I would be trying to share, and he would direct it into ways of seeing what I was doing and what I was trying to give in another perspective, that it does have a tradition and a tradition-based ethos to it. You know what I mean? And I didn't have to defer to him. We just picked up our cues. It was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? It was beautiful. And we did that for like a year without saying we'll be there next week, or I'd be there as expected, and he just would pop up, and it just was great. You know what I mean? It just was great. And it was a wonderful thing. One of the greatest moments of my life, if I had to pick out a thing, teaching this knowledge. That's probably the first thing I would think about after the obvious, learning this knowledge and stuff. But as far as teaching it in my classroom, you know what I mean? And now I'm gonna miss the guy a lot. But I think, yeah, see, you, True Divine, I think you definitely showed up for some of those classes where me and Infinite Al-Jamar were just building back and forth and really holding it down that one year, But that's how I see the difference between perfect and perfection. You know what I mean? That's peace. Let me see. All right, what other questions we have here? It's a great question, though. I'm actually almost finished with all 30 of these. We have 2 left. Are you still God if you can't trace your tree back to Allah? That doesn't make you God. It just makes you more usefully knowing. It is something that is essential. You know what I mean? You should know your tree because it links you up with many of the, a lot of people say like it validates you. You should know your tree. But one of the great things about knowing your tree is that you can explore with others, because sometimes it's many of the roots of that tree you can't talk to. They've returned to the essence or whatnot. And you can find some of the understanding that your tree is based on, that is profound. You know what I mean? And then also on that journey, they'll learn about other people's trees and things. So it's very important, though. You know what I mean? It's very important. I think that if anybody sees me teach after a while and they don't see the things I picked up from these teachers, knowledge me, my enlightener, savior knowledge, wise Jamel, Dumar Wadi, infinite Al-Jamar, Allah B, if they don't see, firstborn Al-Jamel, firstborn Prince, of course, if they don't see these cues that I have, if they don't see those things that I have that have molded and been able to draw out the way that Sunez teaches, they're not really listening very well. You know what I mean? But that value of a tree is very profound. And I think that if you get this knowledge and you say that you're in this nation, you don't always have a tree that is that clean, but you go to work on solidifying a tree as you go along, and that's important though, because there's a lot of teachings that come along with the tree being founded, formulated. You know what I'm saying? There, like, and I guess I'll go to that thing with Darkim and a Supreme Scientist. Supreme Scientist kept saying a profound point that I get, that if you have this knowledge, it doesn't matter really where you're from and stuff like that. It isn't validated if you're just from Mecca. And it isn't, but it has to be validated by going through Mecca. And I've said this many times. Anyone can figure out that the original man is God. All right? Someone can be a genius at mathematics and biochemistry, neurology, quantum mechanics, any of those, or any combination of those, and actually figure this out. This is actual truth. So someone technically should be able to figure it out without the means that we have. However, what Darkim was saying about Mecca was that when we look at the reality of things, that has not been the case in this modern era. You know what I mean? So since Fard brought this knowledge, right? When we think about it, those degrees say those teachings say the black man is God. And yet it was really only the Father who left and established something that says, you know what I'm saying? You are the true and living God. There is no mystery. It is you. And when we look around, so many of these ancient texts that are revisited now, people become Buddhist, people deal with the ancient, Buddhist text, the Taoist text, which is very filled with this concept, if you analyze. Many of the Sufic orders, which said it pretty blatantly, I think it was Bastami who was killed for saying "I," because by saying "I" is like the revelation, and I, like it is I that is the true and living. You know what I mean? So, these revelations are things that people over time have come with, and with the depth of language that was much more concentrated and profound, have claimed this. And yet, in this modern era, where are these examples but from Mecca? And the reason that Mecca is such that root that everything ought to pass through it is not because it's these individuals that that can validate it for you, but it's the storehouse. It's what I'm saying. Like, if I say that let's just look at my. I still have a mother. Um, I'm entering a stage where many people see me as one of an elder to many because I'm already older. I'm I'm culture equality, right? I'm 46, right? But in many respects, right, it also means that there is a bevy of experience with those particular elders that allows me to actually know things that other people are not privy to. You know what I'm saying? A way of analyzing things that take into account histories that have only been shared hand to hand. This is why some of those things aren't really going to be shared in the classroom here. They will only be mentioned because these are things that's still taught individually. The civilization class, though, is the way to begin the relationship with the individual. When I learned what knowledge means, I was in the classroom all the time, a student that took notes. I still have these notepads that I took notes. But the real time that I spent with knowledge me was outside of the classroom. When all class was said and done, how late I would stay with him. That one-on-one interaction. Those moments where I would go to him and ask him particular things. This is when you become a student. And this is when, whether you know it or not, you're learning about these histories with the elders. And the other thing is, where that root is, though, is an accumulation of that experience. And so, my getting the knowledge at Mecca, no matter what anybody says, my getting the knowledge of Mecca and being there every single day, living a life there, is a completely different experience because I was around people that lived in the area that were the true and living gods. Such a different experience. You know what I mean? And this is why, like, many of the gods that and I don't mean people that are just my peer group, but the real big brothers that may be only 4 or 5 years older than me, right? But have had it way longer because they got it in their young teens. They didn't have these experiences like I did, where I was just at the school, living the life with them in this cipher. Sometimes I went with them, sometimes I didn't, but I was generally at the school, seeing how school is conducted. And a lot of times, when the elders that taught me, being taught how to deal with the classroom, so it was a very particular training I received. But many of these other big brothers that I had, Dr. Tim is a great example. Um, they were with these elders and living life with them, like regular life with them. And they're probably the youngest people now around my age and a little older, but they end up being the last peoples to really have daily life with the elders, you see? And so these daily life realities and these daily encounters, right? And studies with these elders are something that no one out of Mecca has. You know what I'm saying? No one out of Mecca has, you know? And why is it different? Because that school has been so important, then that means what you're doing though is constantly having this reality of adjusting a daily life reality, right, into Allah School and Mecca's reality. You know what I mean? Right? How do we take the daily reality of what we teach in the street and then bring it into a classroom mold and make it historically relevant as an institution of education? Even having a law school in Medina and other places, it's really in Mecca where this knowledge itself has become an institution. There's nowhere in the world, there's nowhere in the world this knowledge itself has become an institution of education when we talk about our nation being a nation and its institution of education. It's nowhere else. And so I think that though what I see where Supreme is coming at, it's going to sound like ego, but it's much different. it's much different. You know what I'm saying? I could tell you the realities of what it was like to be with Azrael, but unless you walk and talk with me, those students that I build with, when they get something from me that is very unique, it's only in those particular instances that they're going to see not only how I react to certain situations, but also the particular life realities and the histories that I give that are finally that finally come out because we are in a particular situation. You know what I mean? And that's what happens when you walk and talk with elders. There's no place like, you know what I mean? And it sounds harsh when in that discussion, Darkim is telling him to show and prove what he's done. And Supreme has done great things. You know what I'm saying? Supreme scientist. But that reality, the reality is where is what actually is done. Can it be done? You see? Can it be done without going to that place or being in touch with that place? I don't think so. I really don't think so. You know what I mean? I'm sure that there's many counterpoints. I'm sure that you know what I'm saying, even Dark Kim himself has more to build on that and stuff like that. That's what I'm trying to give some insight to as far as that goes. 793, I don't know what you mean by, oh, you asking Divine where he's at in Boston Road. Okay. Last question. Whew. What does A alike mean? A alike, B alike, so we can see alike. Allah alike, right? We're all the true and living God. So we are alike Allah because we are Allah, and so we are alike. So we are A alike. You know what I mean? We're brothers. Simple as that. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm gonna take a little break here. Wait for some of the people to come in here. Because, man, oh, you gave me a lot of questions, man. I didn't realize I had 10 more and you gave me 20 more. So that was 30 questions I just went through, along with about 2 or 3 other questions people asked. Y'all asked in the chat. So, oof. Oh, Justice, you had another one. Is one allowed to paraphrase the degree when building with someone to get the point quicker? I've done that I've done that continuously today. So it depends. If sometimes when you're talking to elders, you want to show and prove that you can quote the degree. But if we're building and we respect that we know these degrees, uh, you don't have to quote. You know what I mean? It's okay. You know what I'm saying? You know, if you're building with brothers that like they're still learning or you're still learning, I think it's a great exercise to just quote the degree. You know what I'm saying? But it's not always mandatory in a conversation. You know what I'm saying? All right. Okay. Right. I said all that. I don't know if anybody has any questions about all the questions I answered. It got me sweating in here, you know? Now, everybody's talking about the Will Smith thing, right? When we analyze things, right, we look at things all clearly. I just want to give a build about this because when we talk about perspective of understanding, I need everybody to look at things with complete understanding and useful insight. You know what I'm saying? And I saw some of my brothers, some in the nation, some not in the nation. Um, when you see Will Smith slap somebody, it's a surface level build. If you say he's protecting his woman, that's the way it ought to be. I slap niggas up. That's baby stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you have a earth, let's talk about the highest level of woman. If you have a earth and she needs to be protected physically from every type of naysayer, you'll be dead soon enough. You know what I'm saying? You'll be dead soon enough. You know what I mean? Um, I'm going to continue with the will thing, but I see Justice Khalil D17. I think that's a 17 year. You said, do you have history on how we normally communicate peace with our hands, in the index and middle finger together? That was just something the gods always did. The idea of unity. You know what I'm saying? And the more that we built, the more that like it just came away. So the elders just said it was an aspect of unity. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's no like deep, esoteric thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just that it was always about the unity. So we put those fingers together. That's simple. Nothing more. It's that simple. It's profound as in simplicity. Now, here's what I was saying. Right. And this is also the symbol of victory. You know what I'm saying? So it's also a westernized symbol, as far as that goes. But I'm not the I teach my kids to do that, and sometimes they mess with me, and they like my little one will always mess with me and do the pictures like that. You know what I'm saying? She'll take the cuter picture like this and then do like the dumb one like this to mess with me. Because I'm trying to get her to do it the right way, right? It's so annoying. But I think that's not much of a big deal. You know what I'm saying? The point is that we advocate peace. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it should be two things. You know what I mean? I'm not going to make a big deal out of things, you know? And I remember, for those that see it, though, a lot of times they'll see me do this, being part of the low lives. And it was the God, Rakim Supreme Shabazallah, who gave me my L's to be part of the low lives. There's a lot of gods that are low lives, you know what I mean? And he was like, we also want to represent that we're the gods and we're building in this organization as well and adding on powerfully in it. And so he would put the peace sign like this and make the L's like that, you know what I mean? But again, it was just a way to show a unity that we're building with the low lives and we have history with them, but that we're the gods, you know what I mean? So just so if anybody sees any do that stuff, you know what I mean? But in the end, it's just all ways to communicate, you know what I'm saying? And the consistency of that unity is the good thing about that, you know. Because I wouldn't, when you have an argument like with somebody, oh, you're doing it wrong and this and that. It's like with the children, I let them kind of do it the way they want to do it. You know what I'm saying? And then I just show them like, yo, this is what it really means and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I don't. I like to enforce my rigidity with other things. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm going back to that will thing because I want to make sure some of the builds and insights that I agree with, but there's one profound thing missing, and I'm going to get to it. People don't know the case study When we look at celebrities, though, people look like that's all Illuminati, and you know, he had the symbols. He puts his hand there. He does shit. I don't give a shit about any of that, though. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't really bear witness to the power of that masonry shit, right? But or the whether the concept of its stage and stuff like that. For us as a case study, I'd like to take it to the perspective that what Will Smith did to Chris Rock was a real thing and not staged. Let's just assume this for a moment here, okay? So that we could see some validity in this case study. We start criticizing people. The Wu don't build. They don't do this. They don't do that. I want you to start building like, yo, what if when I was in that situation, what would I really do? You know, sometimes people tell me, they're like, yo, if I was there, I would have done it like this and that. And the truth is, how when you aren't even good enough to stand in front of the class and build? The law school in Mecca probably fit, what, 15, 20 people? And you're not even good enough to build in front of there. So don't tell me what you would do in front of millions and millions of people or in a cipher that would be broadcast for really the potential of billions to see it. Don't assume that you know what you would do in every situation. You know what I'm saying? Or that you would be so brash and it would be so simple, right? The other thing is this, is that as a case study, we study different people so that we could get insight, right? If we're criticizing Will Smith, I think the first thing to do is to go back, not just the red table talk thing, not just any of that, but read the profound work of literature he wrote, which is his autobiography, and how exposing it was to himself. And then look at how a man's work can be so personalized that the worlds merge. This is very important because I'm teaching you all to be creators, and so I want you to create things. You know what I'm saying? Right? These are justice, right? Just the God, right? We create music, and we talk about your name and everything. And you have a stage name and you have a righteous name, but these worlds collide because the truth is it's you all the time. You know? What about other people that don't have this knowledge, that don't have that foundation of that, and they can't really merge the two? So the three things to really understand this situation and really get some use out of it is not just did you see the incident, which includes also his speech, his acceptance speech, but did you really read his autobiography? You know? And did you accept that he has a worth that has gone beyond just good artwork, good works of art, as in movies in this case, and some good songs. And we will not be including Getting Jiggy With It as good songs, though. That would be one of the fails. A song that if it was erased from history, the world would be a much better place. However, documentaries like the Welcome to Earth documentary series that he did on Disney Plus, which if you have Disney Plus, it's really good. But his mentality in there, that the fact that he's doing all this is to, which is also continuing the theme of his autobiography of overcoming fears and this reality that he thinks that he is a coward, right? And he worked so hard in that Will book, his autobiography, to analyze why he feels that he is a coward. Now, if I tell you all this, the first thing that you should be doing is saying, wait a minute, the fear is one of the most important degrees that we deal with, right? That's the entire crux of the entire 1 to 36. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what anybody says, though. A lot of people think that the black man, us being fooled by the traitor is the most important part. The fear is what leads to being fooled. The fear is more important, though, because being fooled doesn't always tell you something. Like someone could be fooled because they're just not good at learning. But that doesn't really tell you about their morals and their ethics and how they could be manipulated generation to generation. Because just as you get like one person that's not so good at learning, their spawn can be extremely intelligent and genius, because that person that may not have good intelligence actually made a quest to say, listen, I don't want you to be like me and work hard. And they're also merging the genetics with the other parent, right? So on and so forth, right? Because a lot of that could be epigenetic, meaning that it is environment influences, the realities influence how they will develop, right? Again, most important part of the 1 to 36, though, is that 6th degree. He likes the devil because the devil gives him nothing. And then everything develops from there. But in this case, though, right? All of those degrees about fear, right, become the most important ones, right? They say, why does he like the devil? The way I see that is like when you read Will Smith's autobiography, it's almost liking the devil to me is when you claim something negative about yourself as an actual fact. When you stereotype, cliche, and identify yourself as something weak and wicked, then you have what? Like the devil. Because you're doing like the devil. And now you like the devil. So when someone like Will Smith says that he sees himself as a coward and has to engage in overcoming fears, then that obsession can actually cloud you in your decision making. See? Because if you think overcoming fears is just to be daring and do anything that seems like you're overcoming fear, what's also happening too is that you're not using fear correctly as well. Because there's a thin line between fear and caution. There's a difference. And if you don't understand the two, you also could be led in the wrong direction. You know what I'm saying? For example, if one says, "Nah, I shouldn't really go up there and just smack the dude. That would be like ruining the whole event," things like that. You might acknowledge that one in this case, Will might have acknowledged that as fear, as opposed to good caution. And so he has a checker's mind, bounce, bounce, bounce into it, as opposed to, now if I make this move, that move could deter everything else that we build in here. That's not a good move, right? Now we'll leave that there because that's where the real jewel is, but I'm going to continue to make the other points that's there. And if anybody would like to read the Will book, I have it though. You know what I'm saying? If you have watched the Red Table Talk thing, and people have justified their marriage, Jada and Will, as something that is their own marriage, they make their own decisions and things like that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or some genius, psychoanalytical thought to see that whatever they called their open marriage, though, the actions of that openness cause hurt and pain. You see what I'm saying? So that means that it wasn't a decision made in love. It was a decision just made and accepted. There's a difference. You see? And nobody's going to tell me different, though, right? Because they made a whole meme of that. Because that look on Will Smith's face after she says entanglement, that became a meme of despair, the face of despair, the face of anguish, face of someone that cannot prove their love and can do anything. And that's something to deal with, though, when you deal with women, especially you young gods. There's a certain point where you cannot please a woman because they cannot be pleased, though. You see what I'm saying? They reached beyond that. And what happens is that you have a person many times when the woman does devilishment, the type of devilishment that they can do is constantly never being pleased, always needing something else. You know what I'm saying? This is important. This is very important. And so in that question, Caesar, and I get this from the book. If you read the book, you read about the 50th birthday that Jada had and that he did this grand thing. It was magnificent. Magnificent. And yet she saw it as, she was very disappointed with him for days and days and just saw it as an expression of his male ego as opposed to a grand expression of love. You put all this together, though, then you see someone that cannot be pleased, and you see it manifest itself. That when that happens, though, then one must take other extremities, right? And that means overcoming their fearlessness, because it's their cowardice that can't actually fulfill, right? So, what does he do, right? Doesn't think it through, right? Goes off and does the illogical act. You know what I mean? Because there was some real classy ways to heckle him, right? I've heard this bill and I agree with it, to go up there and snatch the mic, right? You could old dirty bastard it. You could snatch that mic and say, listen, my wife is this, she has this, and I don't really appreciate those jokes, and talk about her, right? And really put her on a pedestal, whatever, right? So you could be Yang, but a slap. Here's one thing, right? When you're attacked by words, right? The only time something physical would happen, though, right, is if you're being threatened. You know what I'm saying? And if people cannot be built with anymore, this wasn't that case, man. This definitely wasn't that case, you know. But here's the real jewel, because I'm teaching gods, I'm teaching kings, people that have the knowledge of the people and the knowledge of themselves, and know the way to conduct themselves, to guide the populace through their righteous ways of actions, right? Here's the thing, right? That's not mentioned, right? And you all need to learn this, though. When you reach levels of excellence, though, there are things that you shouldn't stoop down to. You know what I mean? Will Smith is not a regular actor anymore, right? He's an all-time box office champ in this. Denzel's clearly the better actor. For me, and I'm just throwing this out there, I saw both movies. What Denzel Washington did with Macbeth is way beyond anything that Will Smith did with King Richard. You know what I mean? To me, the best actor was Denzel. And Denzel is the better actor. However, the bigger actor, the actor with power, the actor with box office power, Will Smith is his own industry in many ways. In many ways, his industry is even more diverse than Denzel or any other actor there, right? He's executive produced shows that we watch that are blowing up through Netflix, like the Cobra Kai shit, all of that. He has power as executive producer. He's behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, everywhere. He's a business. He's a powerful industry within the industry. Now, I want you to know that one of the tragedies not spoken of is that we saw somebody that's a general act like a sloppy foot soldier that gets a dishonorable discharge. See? And that's not the point complete. Like, is he smacking people behind the scenes, right? The jewel is that how he's making moves has nothing to do with smacking people. How you make moves on that level is the power that you flex. You see? Here's one easy thing that could have been done. The power that he has, he never has to say nothing. He could continue to smile, look at his wife and say, don't worry about it. Commercial break happens. He goes up there and says, you're going to go up there on that stage. And either I'm going to do it or you're going to do it, Chris Rock. And you're going to apologize for that joke. And to come back right the next commercial break and you're going to apologize for that joke. If you don't do it, then I'm going to do it. On that thing. Dear the entire thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of power that you have, though, but if you act like a foot soldier, then you're not really respecting the power that you have. When you reach a status, and I learned this from Dave's son, when you reach a high level of status, though, sometimes it isn't good that they see you fight. That's also in the art of war. See, certain people reach a status where it actually isn't good for people to see them move certain ways. In that case, though, he showed a lot of weakness, though, by even having to take it physical. And because of the cipher, the way it's designed, it showed no kind of thought process beyond that wouldn't really show his power. You know what I mean? That the power doesn't have to be shown in an aggressive manner. See, but everything goes out the window, though, when you have what? Fear. When you have embraced fear as a character trait that you are always working to overcome, as opposed to understanding that fear is just an aspect, is just an exaggerated cautionary reality with feeling within you that is quickly dispelled by knowledge, and then the willing to wisdom that knowledge that is now found. Right? That's what the jewel is here. You know what I'm saying? The God asks about love. You learn about love in situations like this. You know what I'm saying? Right? How should one lash out? How should one protect their women? How does one protect? This is why we learn the martial arts. We learn how to deal with certain situations. You see? Didn't Bruce Lee say fighting without fighting? He could have had such a great outcome with that without even having the flex like that. Because the flex he had so much muscle to flex in other ways that it would have been way more profound though. And it would have been a real teaching tool, you know what I'm saying? For the populace, you know, than what it ended up being. You know? So take note of that. I agree with you, 793rd. You know, if he had to take it to an extreme that I don't agree with either, it would have been heckling. You know what I'm saying? I don't agree with it because I think he's general. He has more power than that. You know what I'm saying? He could stop the whole show. Once that commercial break hits, he could stop the whole show. He could change the flow of the entire show. You know what I mean? And that's what's important there. You know what I'm saying? You know? And I'm not saying 793rd that, you know, you think I think Sam Jackson could have done a good job. And I definitely think that Will Smith winning the Oscar is well deserved too. I just thought Denzel was better in what he did. But I thought he was Oscar worthy as well, Will Smith. You know what I mean? It was great. It was a great movie. You know what I'm saying? It was a great performance though. I don't think that King Richard is as great a movie as it could be. I think that Macbeth though was a great movie because it's all Denzel. You know what I'm saying? And he was amazing in it. But and I don't think he did this for his ego. I think he did it because the only way he feels he can conquer his fears is by attacking them. And by being aggressive, it's also going to show that woman extreme versions of love. It's all, if you read the book, you see that he constantly brings up the most stupidest things to kind of equalize how he hasn't been a good husband. And I'm reading through it though, and I'm like, like for example, he brought up this thing like where he went Michael Jordan and had to win the Monopoly at all costs though, and basically ended up, winning the game too easily, and a family event became something where he just dominated and then it was quickly over. Like, if these are the only things you could bring up, like, like that's the same as entanglement. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a whole book of reaching. You know what I'm saying? And I also find it interesting too, right? That Chris Rock, I find it interesting and sloppy that Chris Rock didn't know that was a bad joke. That Chris Rock didn't take into account that that comedians never joke about white women's hair. They never joke about white women being bony as sticks. They never quote about their exaggerations and mutilations of their own beauty. You know what I'm saying? They never make fun of no actress's stupid hairstyle that's white. They never do any of that shit. But they're quick to make fun of the black woman. See, I don't really care for Jada, but the thing that she's going through is not like some new condition. It's a condition that most black women are going through. Let's keep it real. Most black women, they have destroyed their hair. And Will Smith made the documentary that really opened all that up. And he still went into there with that joke. And I thought it was a sloppy joke. It could have been much better. You know what I'm saying? Because it shows that his joke didn't take into account that his own content, like the fact that he actually saw that as an important reality. So his own joke actually demeaned his own work, you know, and that's why it was pretty weak. You know what I'm saying? Because he could have made that joke and then turned it into in a way that it becomes a commentary of her achievement. And if you think you can't make that funny, then now it's saying that somebody as talented as Chris Rock, who's really all-time level, can't make something that is a positive joke. You can only make a negative joke that's funny. You know what I'm saying? You could make a positive joke that's funny. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I thought that it was very sloppy and awkward that he even went there like that. You know what I mean? Right. But I think that as a case study, it shows us a lot of layers. You know what I'm saying? Watch out what woman you dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I have that experience though. You know what I'm saying? You could do everything in the world and it won't please a woman. You know what I'm saying? Because you know what they want is particular and is not your reality. You know what I mean? And they'll never really be satisfied. You know what I'm saying? That's something to always, you know what I mean? Always do. And if we're talking about defending, I don't remember. I don't remember her saying, you know, she, as I saw in many builds that were right and exact. I never saw Jada saying, "Listen, stop talking about my husband. Don't belittle him," or even go out there and pull back that entanglement thing and say, "Listen, that was whack." You know what I'm saying? I didn't do no entanglement. I didn't trip up. You know what I'm saying? And fall into, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to be vulgar, but you know, she didn't fall into it. You know what I'm saying? Like that, you know, August didn't stumble into the power you. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't just trip up and they just, you know, tripped over their friendship to it, you know, and it just fell into it. You know? What she did though is some Woody Allen shit. Let's keep it real. What she did was some Woody Allen shit. And it demanded more than just a dismissal of entanglement. Because what you did, if it was on the other side, if Will Smith had done that, people would have been, he would have been canceled a long time ago as some black Woody Allen. Because that was a baby you dealt with. When you dealing with somebody that's the age of your child, you that's you know, that's levels of, you know, pedophilia. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know. So that was something, you know, that's something, you know, let alone, you know, what we realized that if the kid was dealing with some issues though, and then you turned it into that, like we know what he did that. No. So you did that. So you took that, you made that situation happen. You know, they did, you know, it's funny. And that's why I think he did this too, because he's still angry about that. You can't do something. They got on that Red Table Talk, which is her show. She said, let's get on the show so they could clear up the issue for the people that they still love each other and they have a weird relationship and it works. But she invited him to the show, and the entire purpose of doing that was never achieved. And I think that will leave a man angry. You know what I mean? So when you're dealing with fear, you're also dealing with anger. You're also dealing with the fear that you don't really know what you're trying to atone for. So always having a knowledge of self is always to be able to judge yourself, put judgment on yourself to see where you're dealing with things. Right? This cannot be understated in any way. The way that we deal with things is the way that we deal with issues. You know what I'm saying? Right? We all have issues. You know what I'm saying? Right? What if I learned all this martial art, me being a shorter man, everyone that is weak and deals with wickedness with me might say, oh, he's little, he can't do this, he can't do that, and all that kind of stuff. And I have some kind of supposed Napoleonic complex. And I just start beating people's asses and stuff. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't resolve any issues. Right? It shows that I'm learning something so that way I can strike back because I feel bad about those things. So the truth is I don't. That's not really why I learned any of this stuff. Right? And when you master yourself, whatever people say against you is going to be a better exposure of them as opposed to their clever analysis of what they think might get you riled up. You know? But again, like I said, there's many layers. And when we look at stuff, though, and if you're going to end up having to deal with all these damn memes, try to get the understanding. Try to look at things and say, well, what would I do really? Would you really fuck up a whole show? If you worked your whole life to, you know what I mean? Nah, you wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? And if the earths are out there and you let someone wild out in the name of you, you allow demolition to be done in the name of you, and that's not right and exact. You needed to be like, nah, it's all good, man. It's whatever he says, man. Fuck that shit. You know? And you buckle down, you get tough, you shed a tear some other place. You know? But it is what it is, though. You know what I'm saying? As we get to the end of this class, you know what I mean? We end at 9 o'clock and I end at 9 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to throw that out there because I want you to know, like, you got to know your power. And I want us to know our power. You know? Right? Know your power. You know what I mean? See, 7-9-30, it's the white man's stage. But when you're on it, though, they have the power to use it as their forum. You know? No matter what, when we're in any place, though, it's our forum. Like, people used to always say and try to belittle Rage Against the Machine, right? They didn't realize that, oh, it's just rock music. It's white people talking some revolution stuff. And the truth is that the lead was an MC. He's actually MCing Zach De La Rocha, and he was a Mexican brother talking about revolutionary shit. And so, oh, they're on Sony, though, so they're hypocritical. They can't be talking about revolution shit. Same thing some people would say about Public Enemy. Sometimes the stage is not yours. But when you're on it, though, it's your forum. And you drop all the jewels you can. You know what I mean? Because we're always in this life, in this oppressed life as oppressed people, we're in contradictions. You know what I'm saying? Why do you think people find it so difficult, you know what I mean, when they see it, if they go, oh, the God is wearing so much polo, this and that, you know what I'm saying? And they'll have that, they don't won't understand, though, that I embrace these contradictions. You know what I mean? But the fact that it's their stage doesn't mean that you didn't have that. People like Will Smith and stuff have actually the power to use that stage as their forum. And there's no way that at that moment he could have had the dopest teaching moment. And there's no way that he's not a person that is witty enough, clever enough to go back and forth, witticism versus witticism with Chris Rock. You know? But it's a lot to deal with. And when you start to judge people, say, oh, they snap this and that, I want you to analyze that, because as being a true and living God, you shouldn't just hope, but you should will the day that the weight of the world literally is on your back. You know what I mean? So you better start doing the knowledge, though, to see how you would do it, as opposed to just saying like, oh, well, he did it wrong, he did this, he did that. You know what I mean? Look at it from all the angles and get the understanding. All right. So we have a couple of minutes left. I actually got through everything I was going to, the questions, a little note about, dark and the whole concept of Mecca, and I don't know if supreme scientists saw this, but I got love for both of those brothers, of course, just wanted to add a little bit more insight. I had a build about Mecca in last class, very intense. So I just wanted that to be known. But anyway, that should be the major idea here. If anybody has any questions, it's been last handful of minutes. So just waiting on anybody has any builds or something like that. Okay. All right. And by the way, I talked about the song that I did with the God Justice, who goes by King Kamal. Let me just share it here so y'all could see. I think the God did a great job, and you know what I mean, I ain't a rapper, but I got lyrics. You know what I'm saying? And definitely joint. So make sure you guys watch the Azrael documentary, and also check out the song. Do not to it. Um, All right. That's peace, God. Peace, Malik. Peace, 73. All right, so we're at the born hour. I'm gonna let you all go. Any questions? Email me Sunez97 at Gmail. Again, I'm always looking for writers for the 5% media. You know what I'm saying? All right, so if you have anything you want to write, or if you don't know what to write, but you want to write, I can give you ideas, all that. Anything that you need, right? Let me know, right? Peace.